Our main news this morning, Nigel Farage has reacted to the Prime Minister's warning that reform's economic policies are fantasy and Liz Truss-like. He was talking in Las Vegas at a, believe it or not, a Bitcoin conference.
We have Keir Starmer, our socialist Prime Minister, is terrified. Do you know, he mentioned me 16 times today in a speech. I'm living rent-free inside his head.
Well, that's after Sir Keir Starmer's scathing speech, where he did mention Nigel Farage's name 16 times. Here's a taster of what the Prime Minister had to say.
Now in government, we're once again fighting the same fantasy, this time from Farage. The same bet in the same casino, that you can spend tens of billions of pounds on tax cuts without a proper way of paying for it. Using your family finances, your mortgages, your bills as the gambling chip on his mad experiment.
Well, while in Vegas, Farage also confirmed Reform will now accept Bitcoin donations in a move not unsimilar to Donald Trump's endorsement of cryptocurrencies. But could his closeness to Trump prove helpful or harmful to voters here?
Well, with us now to discuss all of this is Deputy Political Editor at The Spectator, James Heale. Good to see you this morning, James. And don't you think it was just pretty extraordinary that we had the Prime Minister hold an entire press conference yesterday on Nigel Farage?
Yeah, I mean, it felt almost like a sort of general election press conference, Eddie, where you have people quibbling about different sums, going over the details, saying about tax and spend plans. We're still 4 years away from a general election, which is one of the most striking things about yesterday's press conference. It was hastily arranged. It was obviously very much a response to Nigel Farage's own press conference on Tuesday talking about the two-child benefit cap. And I think it's a reflection of a couple of things, one of which, of course, is that Nigel Farage is the man making the political weather in Westminster. He doesn't have the levers of state, but as Chris Hope said, you've only got 5 MPs, and yet he's living rent-free within your head.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show where the threat is. I mean, and this is obviously concern for the Labour Party, but actually a huge concern for the Conservatives, because they are just nowhere to be seen in real terms.
Massively so. And you now have this new exciting startup on the right in Reform. You have the Labour government in office with all the trappings of state. You have the Liberal Democrats, too, occupying much of southern England. And the Tories are struggling to cut through. I wrote a column a few weeks ago talking about them as the Tinkerbell Tories. If voters no longer believe in them, they will die, just like Tinkerbell died. And I don't know what the niche to find for them is going to be, because their record in government was terrible. They really are having difficulties about getting everyone in line on certain policies. And they have Reform and Nigel Farage saying the same things, but with a slightly new tune and a slight novelty there. So the Conservatives are facing an existential crisis right now.
And on that point, do you think they've made a mistake with their leader, with Kemi Badenoch? Because we've seen Robert Jenrick yesterday, kind of vigilante journalism, I suppose.
Tory Batman.
Yeah.
How about you?
And he's been stopping fare dodgers in Stratford. We've got the video on the screen now, asking people why they're not paying. Everybody else seems to pay when they go through the barriers at train stations. And he's been stopping people. He's actually been told off by TfL for doing so. But this it's gone viral. And it's clearly cutting through with people.
Yeah, extraordinary. I think it's coming up to 10 million views. One of the most viewed political videos I can remember of recent times. There was a whole discussion on Newsnight about it, just off the back of it. And I think it's a real talker in Fleet Street terms. People are talking about this video because either your sympathies are with the people who are sort of paying their wages every day and having to get basically fleeced. I think fare dodging costs TfL something like 100+ million a year. Or there are some people who are actually coming out and criticising Robert Jenrick for being a grass as a result of this. And I think it's one of those issues, a wedge issue, on which side he's on the right side of public opinion. But to go back to your original point, Ellie, I think that some of the party might now have a degree of buyer's remorse. But I would say, in fairness, you need to give Kemi Badenoch more time. And also, let's face it, whomever would have been the leader at these local elections would have had a shellacking, although it might have been a bit different if a slightly different personality was involved.
Yeah, it's like all of these things. After a big election defeat, who would actually want to be the next leader of the party? I mean, it's a poisoned chalice. Whoever was, might have done Robert Jenrick a favour not getting it at that stage. But, what is striking about all of this, and with Reform and the Prime Minister talking about fantasy economics and all the rest of it, the reality is, though, he's saying what people want to hear. Now, delivering that is a different matter, but it's about who is tuned into the public on all of this, which is then ties in to the Attorney General. Now, most people will never have heard of Lord Hermer, but he is the government's chief legal advisor, who's now gone and said people who want to leave the ECHR, because it's obviously an immigration block to get to stop people coming here, and even mentioned the Reform Party in this, and he's compared them to Nazi Germany in the 1930s. Now, how tone deaf can that be?
Absolutely. And I think just for the context, of course, Lord Hermer was the only member of the cabinet who wasn't there in opposition. He was handpicked by Keir Starmer the very first day in office to come in, given a peerage, given the seat in the House of Lords, given the job as Attorney General. And he has repeatedly made life difficult for other ministers in the government. There's some extracts from his Russi speech where he talks about the rule of law in the Daily Mail today, for instance. And he is talking about his disagreement with people who want to leave the ECHR. But he then cites a 1930s German scholar and starts talking about how that was, suddenly the state became the basis of law and how it was used to undermine the rule of law in the Third Reich. But it's a nonsensical comparison. It's deeply irrelevant to the general points being made. And of course, the criticism people make of the ECHR is twofold. One of which is it was designed for a completely different time. So it's about circumstance, not about state power necessarily. And the second thing is the changing European context as well. Lots of European countries are questioning this. Are they all like Nazi Germany? Of course they're not.
No.
Do you think this is indicative, though, of how Labour thinks about people who are calling to leave the ECHR? I mean, there's comparisons being made to the sneers towards Brexiteers. Is that what we're seeing again here?
I think a certain degree of Labour has that. I think that's a minority. I think most see the ECHR as a good thing in terms of giving rights. But I do wonder perhaps if their time has been and gone. We were living in a world, we're going to see the Strategic Defence Review on Monday, slightly different context, but that's going to talk about how we had a glorious world between the 1990s, the end of the Cold War, and the early 2020s. And right now, all that is coming under attack in institutions, and people are determined to use those institutions to turn against interests that are not necessarily in our own. So I think that's all part of a different critique, and I just wonder, when you hear lines like that from Lord Hermer, I think they sound deeply out of touch and unhelpful to the government.
No, because the issue is, let's be honest, very few of us understand the full implications of the ECHR and where we would be in or out of it.
Yep.
The point is, there are many, many people in this country who have genuine concerns about where we're going. And if the government and the people speaking on behalf of government can't show that they are even considering that view, those concerns, then they've lost the argument already.
Yeah, completely. And that will be, for people who want to the ECHR, this will be manna from heaven. This will be exactly what they want to hear, because it was tone deaf, it was a needless comparison. Britain, of course, did not sign up to the ECHR via the Human Rights Act until 1998. Are we saying that the governments of Macmillan, Thatcher, Major were not sort of, in any way comparable to that? It's a poor comparison, and I wonder if anyone from Number 10, for instance, had a look at that speech before it was made. And it's no wonder that certain elements of the Labour Party are calling for him to be sacked to the next reshuffle.
Okay. Yeah. James Heale.
Thanks.
See you. We'll see you in the next hour. Thank you very much.